Killed 5 people in Centerville today, a family of 5. But our thought process in mind was, no way does this dude get through Atascosa County where he can kill somebody else.
Yep.
For a little bit, he did a short little pursuit where he tried to evade those officers.
3 of my guys engaged, 3 of my officers.
Blue Grit Podcast, we are back. It's Clint McNear.
And Tyler Owen.
We have 2 cool guests on with a story that off camera we just realized was 1 year ago this afternoon. I guess it was
tonight.
This evening. Tonight. Would be 1 year ago tonight. Have Sheriff Sowards from Atascosa County and Chief Eric Kaiser, the police chief at Jourdanton PD. And going to build up and talk a little bit, and then we'll kind of manifest into a shootout or a gunfight that happened last year that probably nobody knows what we're talking about at the moment, but when
they'll know.
We get into details of it, everybody will know because it was all over Texas news around the clock. What's up, T.O.?
Oh, man, not much. Enjoying my truck back and getting moved down to Austin, the craziness.
And you're not moving to Austin. You're moving outside of Austin.
Yeah, south of Austin, down towards these guys.
God's country.
God's country. That's right.
Let's kick off. Sheriff, tell us about who you are, where you grew up, and where you born, what you raised, and how you got to where you are now.
Well, I was born and raised in Atascosa County. I got into law enforcement when I was 20 years old, and started out dispatcher, jailer job for the sheriff's office, and before that, I did about a year stint with Jourdanton Police Department as a reserve officer when I was 19. Back then, I could go in the store and buy my pistol, but I had to get my dad to buy the ammunition. And fortunately for me, he agreed to do that.
Now, hold on, Sheriff. You have to, for the listeners out there, you got to understand, and I'm sure you have staff that are of that age. You have to explain. We have some listeners that are in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, Houston. You have to explain the jailer dispatcher. That's a combination job. So go ahead and explain and kind of paint that picture for the listener that's or watcher. Excuse me.
At that time in 1977, our sheriff's office was in a 3-story jail in Jourdanton, which still stands today. And sheriff's office was on the bottom floor. The second floor was jail cells, and the third floor was the jail cells. And so you ran the console, radio console on the first floor, and if there was a problem upstairs, you checked away from the radio and got in the elevator and went upstairs and took care of the problem, brought the inmates down, fingerprinted them, whatever had to be done, released them. And if you worked the evening and night shift, then you didn't have any help. It was you doing it. And
one person ran the building, dispatch, jail, intake.
It's awesome.
Awesome. It's all it was, one person running it, and if it was during the day, during the week, there was somebody around, but at night, it could be a very lonely place. And but you got used to it, and you took care of things. The only thing is sometimes you were away from the phone and the radio 3 or 4 minutes before you could get back downstairs, and sometimes you got back there was stuff waiting for you that you had to take care of.
Was there something that got you at 20 years of age? Do you have family in law enforcement, or was there something that stuck out that got you involved?
Yeah, my brother, Gary, he ended up retiring as police chief in Pleasanton, but he'd gotten into law enforcement, and it got me really interested in it. And so I went to school in 1975 to Law Enforcement Academy, and the rest was history after that.
Very nice. A couple years in the jail, and then went out on patrol deputy?
Yeah, I went out on patrol. We didn't have a lot of patrol spots back then, and openings didn't come up very often. So I was commissioned deputy sheriff and would ride with some of the other deputies. And finally an opening came up, and got out on patrol and did that for about 5 or 6 years, and got promoted to chief deputy at the age of 29.
Oh,
wow.
And so I served as chief deputy for 26 years for my boss, former Sheriff Tommy Williams, and all worked 36 years for him, and went from a jailer / dispatcher to patrol deputy to assistant chief deputy to chief deputy to, and I was the first investigator the sheriff's office ever had. And then went all the way up, and then I ran for sheriff in 2012, and my boss retired.
Been sheriff since 12?
Since January 1st, 2013.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice. Chief, where'd you grow up? I know you're a surfer, California.
No. Other side of the country.
I mean, Florida.
Yeah.
Surfer, Florida. Tell us about where you grew up, sir.
Yeah, I grew up in Florida, on the west coast of Florida, and ended up moving out to Texas in the 90s. And I always kind of had a passion for law enforcement in the back of my head. And I had an officer from San Antonio really encouraged me to pursue that. And so I went to the police academy at San Antonio College and started at the bottom as a patrol officer and ended up being a sergeant, then investigator. And when the chief that hired me retired, I ended up assuming that role, and I've been in that role now for about 15 years.
Was Jourdanton your first department?
No, I was, my very first commissioned job was at the Wilson County Sheriff's Office for a short time, and then to Jourdanton.
How long have you been at JPD?
I just started my 22nd year.
Dang. Wow. How long have you been chief?
15.
Y'all been around a little bit. Y'all may figure this thing out.
Yeah.
Just a tad.
He's got a way to catch up with me.
Yeah,
Yeah, just a tad.
a little bit, but
For listeners, Atascosa County, you guys are south side, not far, but south side San Antonio, southwest side?
yeah, we border Bexar County on the south side. So if you go through Bexar County, San Antonio, we're the next county south.
In what our listeners may think, or when you look on a map that's interesting, and I was shocked by it, is you guys are somewhat rural. You butt up to Bexar County, San Antonio, but y'all are in a predicament being dead between San Antonio, which is extremely busy, and the border, which I've heard there may be something goes on at the border every once in a while. So
A little bit.
You guys stay extremely busy, even being a rural county with no high-rise buildings and all of that. You guys stay slammed because you're the flow between those two crises.
That's exactly right. And then you mix in it an oil boom that's going on down in that area.
Oh, yeah.
And has since about 2011. And so you have that amount of traffic. And then you have the border problems coming up and the smuggling of people that we're involved in almost daily. And then forever, since I was a patrol deputy, over half of our problems came out of Bexar County. So, yeah, we're right there sandwiched in between.
Wow. Well, I guess y'all worked together for a long time. You being the chief deputy, probably whenever y'all met. You went to work for Jourdanton in what year?
I started in 2002. The sheriff was the chief deputy at the time, and it wasn't long after I was working there, we started interacting and became friends, and we both were leaders in the officers association we had at the time. And just and in rural areas, as you know, if you've worked at the sheriff's department, in rural areas, when you have limited manpower, the agencies tend to work better and closer than in the big metropolitan areas. So the sheriff's office and the PDs are always backing each other up and helping each other out with resources. So we developed a friendship relatively quickly when I started.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the benefits of that, and how closely y'all work together, and why that's so important. And,
Well,
and how that
yeah,
developed.
it's on a daily basis that we work with Jourdanton PD, being they're right there at the county seat where we are. And interestingly enough, with Chief Kaiser, when we first met, I didn't do any texting, and he sort of got me started on texting. So,
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so sort of hold that against him in a way, but no, it was probably a good thing. But we worked together good, and we became friends when he was a patrol officer and I was chief deputy, and we started having coffee together in the mornings, and we talked about things and liked the same things, had the same kind of ideas, and it just grew from there.
Yeah.
Well, and what I've always respected about not being in the large metroplex police departments, agencies, areas, you guys figured out long before big agencies did, the value of networking, checking egos at the door to work together for a better common good. I retired from Garland PD, which butts up to Dallas. There was not a lot of interactions with surrounding agencies. We didn't work with the county didn't work with the state didn't work with, any of the involved agencies, and, it was, this is my lane and you stay out of it, and everybody had their lane, and it took years, and I'm not blaming any agency or any one person for that, but that was environment for years. And for probably multiple reasons, that's changed, and federal agencies, state, local, county agencies work well together, but y'all had that figured out long before the big cities, the metropolises of Travis County, Harris County, Bexar County, Dallas County. Y'all had that figured out long before then, that we kind of need each other. And there may be a time, literally, just like what we're going to talk about here shortly, where we're all in this together, and there's probably a better and that's one of the things I wish I'd been around more, because literally we did not, the first probably 10 years of my career, we didn't work with any other agencies. We handle our own, and that's why we handle our own, stay in your lane. And I've always respected how everybody else is able to check their issues and egos at the door and work together.
Well, I think in rural areas, part of that is out of necessity. If a PD officer is on a traffic stop, a deputy might be the only guy within 4 or 5 miles or 10 miles.
40.
Or if a deputy is a mile outside town, that PD officer might be the only guy that can back him up at that time. So it's really important.
Or a game warden or a trooper.
Absolutely, yeah. And we get along with all those agencies. In Atascosa County, we get along with all those agencies pretty well. The agencies, it's no different than anywhere else. You're going to have personality conflicts, but at the end of the day, when it's time to go out and do work, we're going to take care of each other.
Yeah. Well, and what's unfortunate, and Sheriff, I'm not speaking for you, because obviously y'all have a really good relationship, but and I'm not expecting you to comment on this, but you see it, I see it, we see it across the state. Especially you see it within sheriffs' elections, when things go bad, and you see it with sheriffs. They get egotistical. They demand and say, "My God, you're not going to bring the prisoners in my jails," and that's where egos don't get checked at the door, and that's where relationships do get burned. And that's really in the rural areas where it gets confrontational. I've seen it in East Texas, not in Marshall, but northeast, and it's just bad. It's just bad for business, and it's bad for law enforcement, and it's bad for public safety. But in rural areas, you do kind of see it more of a camaraderie, and I think it has to do with a lot. Like in the metropolitan areas, I think it's because there's vast majority of the larger departments, your backup's within 2 minutes. Just like you said, you're talking about a 40-mile backup.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah.
You have to have that.
Yeah,
that backup it's all 40 miles away. So
you're exactly right, Tyler. I've seen a lot of that. I'm not going to say where I saw it.
Right. No, I'm not asking that.
And I've seen a lot of it, and actually a little bit of it in Atascosa County way back in the day, and I always thought that was ridiculous. And having a brother with the police department in Pleasanton, I think, was an asset, because I didn't understand that people not working together. Everybody should be working together, and over the years it got better and better and better and better, and I would have it no other way. Yeah. That's the way it should be, because we're there to not stroke our own ego. We're there to serve the public.
That's right.
And protect the citizens. And if we can do it working together better than working by ourselves, then that's what we need to do.
Well, and me and Clint had this conversation yesterday. When things are going good, when things are going absolutely great, they could always be better.
Sure.
And that's the reality of it. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, we all know that you guys work well together and had been for many years, and I think that's probably why it works so well. And thank God it didn't happen to end in a bad way the night that we're going to talk about. Clint, if you want to kind of pick up on the events that took place that night.
Breaking news now coming from Leon County, north of Madisonville. That is where we were told a Texas Department of Criminal Justice inmate escaped near Centerville after he stole a transportation bus. Investigators say 46-year-old Gonzalo Lopez assaulted a correctional officer and then took the vehicle. He crashed it a short time later. Authorities are searching for him now. Lopez is serving a life sentence for capital murder out of Hidalgo County and attempted capital murder out of Webb County. If you have seen him or know anything, you are asked to call 911.
Yeah, so for our listeners, I can't believe it's been a year ago. We were talking off camera, and he was texting me before, and he said, hey, man, did you hear about the prison escape several days or a week ago that killed the family? And I said, yeah. Well, he sends me a picture of his rifle and his passenger floorboard, and I said, have you been sent somewhere? And he goes, well, he's headed our way. I'm being told he's headed our way. So it was a year ago today of the gunfight. About how long prior to that was his prison escape?
I think it was 18 days, if I remember correctly, about 17 or 18 days. And it had been going on with a massive manhunt in Leon County around Centerville looking for him.
So for our listeners, a year ago, guy escapes from prison. He's on the loose. As with any prison escape, nobody really knows immediately where he is, other than you start an immediate search of the area, assuming he may be on foot. How many days later did the grisly murders occur?
Well, and he escaped from a TDCJ bus. So they're going down the highway, and he had either a manufactured handcuff key or had a handcuff key of some type that he was able to get out. He worked his way through a chain link fencing area inside the bus, and the other prisoners made noise to keep the guards from hearing it. He got out and attacked the guards and shanked one of them and caused the bus to have a wreck, and he escaped. And then the murders happened exactly a year ago today.
They were headed to a medical procedure, were they not?
Yes, they were.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So during that time, he was on the run, and they were looking for him. But the murders happened the day that we ended up catching him that night.
And so for 18 days, was it revealed? Was he just in the woods, or just laying low, or was there somebody that helped with him abscond and hide him out?
To my knowledge, they never had a track on him where he was. They were going over the areas. They had prison dogs out every day, half the night, and they never had an idea where he was at. He was doing a good job of staying on the run and keeping out of sight.
And from Centerville, Leon County to you guys, how far, to give the listeners an idea, how far is that?
About 4 hours, maybe a little more.
God. Wow.
From where he escaped to where the murders occurred, how far?
My understanding, and I may be off a little bit, but 15 or 20 miles.
Okay. So, Chief, when you reached out that day, did you guys have some intelligence that he was en route to you guys, or?
Yeah, so what was interesting was I was leaving work, headed home, and I heard a little bit of radio chatter. I started getting some phone calls, and I noticed the sheriff was actively talking to people. It was in the evening, so I knew something was going on. And so when I talked to the sheriff and his command staff, he said, hey, we've got information that this guy may be in the San Antonio area and headed down toward the valley where he could possibly get into Mexico, maybe get it to escape permanently. Well, Atascosa County has Highway 37 that goes to Corpus, Highway 281 that goes through Pleasanton, keeps going south, and Highway 16, which goes through Jourdanton and keeps going down to the border. So he had multiple.
But at this time, it wasn't like an active pursuit. It was just intelligence that, okay.
No. So, but we knew if he was in San Antonio and he was going to go to the valley, there's a very high likelihood he was going to have to come through our county. And so the sheriff orchestrated getting different agencies on different highways so that whichever route he might take, there would be officers watching.
So you want to touch on that?
Yeah. Originally, I'm sitting at home, and in my chair, and I get a text message from an inspector with the TDCJ, Office of Inspector General. And it's a group text that he sent out to me and some other guys. And he said, Gonzalo Lopez, a prison escapee back 18 days ago, whenever it was, killed 5 people in Centerville today, a family of 5. And we believe he's on the way to the Rio Grande Valley. And I instantly had a gut instinct, just a feeling that, if he's in Centerville, Texas, where these murders happened, where he wants to go to the Rio Grande Valley, we're right in the middle. We got 4 highways that come through, headed that way. And I just had this feeling. I sent out an email to my command staff and an email to the police chiefs and just gave them a heads up on it. Well, when my guys started getting email, they all started coming out.
With no vehicle information, though. You had no.
Yeah, we did have a vehicle information, a white General Motors pickup truck that he was stolen from the victim of the murders. And we had that information. We even had a license plate number, but we didn't know where he was at.
Right.
But I just had a feeling. I had this feeling. And it wasn't too long after that, 30 minutes, 45 minutes later, one of my CID guys says, hey, he just got a call from the marshals. They think the guy's in San Antonio. And he might have reached out to somebody in San Antonio, and the marshals found out about it.
TFO, probably.
Yes. So at that time, is like everybody was scrambling. Okay, before May, he might come through Atascosa County, but now, he's gonna come through Atascosa County. There was no doubt in anybody's mind. So we had to cover Interstate 35 that goes from San Antonio to Laredo, Texas 16 that goes from San Antonio down to Rio Grande City, and 281 that goes through Pleasanton on down to McAllen. And then Interstate 37 goes from San Antonio to Corpus Christi. So we split up. We got guys from multiple agencies. There was 2 police departments involved, or 3 maybe, and sheriff's office, constables, Texas Ranger, DPS. So we just covered all those highways and just started watching for that car, that pickup.
We weren't laughing at you. Tyler was a TFO with the Marshals Task Force, and when he hears TFO,
No, they give me shit all the time.
You can see him perk up and get excited.
Yeah.
I was just shout out to all you TFOs out there.
Yeah.
I'm still a brother.
Just want to make sure the listeners knew exactly what we were talking about, right?
Yeah, he's right. TFO, Marshal Service.
I think that was about the time we found out he was in San Antonio and gonna probably head south is when you and me were chatting.
Yeah, because I was reaching out to Mike. So when all this was going on, there was a group chat going on where we were trying to reach out to our contacts in that area, and then you had sent that text because we were trying to figure out because we were wandering too, because we wanted to make sure our members down there, we kind of had attorneys on standby. So for you listeners, watchers, voyeurs, when something major like this happens, we also kind of get attorneys from our standpoint, from an association standpoint. We kind of want to get attorneys on standby too, of like, hey, just in case that this happens and we have members involved.
Sure.
Kind of get that on standby. So we have a group thread for field reps also, because God forbid if we have a member that gets injured or needs legal defense. So we were also being notified too of what's going on. So.
When I knew he's not the chief to sit at home, and when he sent me that, I was like, nah, Chief Kaiser's about to be in a shooting, because he's not the type that's going to go sit somewhere and hide and
right.
command from the radio. He's going to be up.
Well, it worked out well that night for a number of reasons, but I just happened to be out, and excuse me, as we were kind of formulating a plan on the fly, we started. In my head, I'm thinking, who has spikes to stop this guy? Because DPS has them. Not every car
right.
for cities have them, or for the county. I had them in my vehicle, and as this thing started to develop, I started realizing I might be the only guy out here that has spikes, and which, if you're trying to stop somebody like that, is going to be probably something you're going to need to use. So, so turns out after we get everybody set up, a unit at the Bear Atascosa County line in that vicinity spots a white truck that fits the description, and he calls dispatch with the license plate number, and
Sure enough.
that's it.
We heard the license plate number, and the dispatcher ran the return, and it came back to the victim, which out of Conroe, I believe it was, and of course, we knew that was it, and I hollered at him on the radio. I said, "That's the truck we're looking for."
Yeah, do not light it up.
Yeah, and we gave him and it was an animal control officer, a peace officer, and one of my deputies who was on that Highway 16 near Bear County line that intercepted it, and we gave him specific instructions: do not light it up, do not stop it. And most of us were over on Interstate 37, about 10 miles, 8 to 10 miles away. And they're approaching Poteet, and once they get to Poteet, they're going to go through. We had to give Poteet PD instructions: don't get involved, let them go through, and we're going to get set up north of Jourdanton and try to keep them from going into the city of Jourdanton. But we had to drive 100 miles an hour plus to get over there and get set up in time, and we got there just with about 2 minutes to spare, and.
So the pursuing officers that located the vehicle did a very good job of staying far back, keeping him in sight, but staying far enough back to not alert him that they were there.
He never knew he was being followed.
Yeah. The sun had just gone down. It was dark, so all he probably saw was headlights behind him. And now knowing that I probably have the only set of spikes that are nearby, I raced back toward Highway 16. And in my head, I was just really concerned I wasn't going to be able to get in front of him. And I ended up getting over there. I could hear them calling out where they were at as they were driving down the highway. And I actually turned in front of them and started racing away from them to try to create some distance so that I would have time to get out and get the spikes set up. We just north of Jourdanton, so I don't know what other departments do. We try, if we're going to spike somebody, to try to do it away from a populated area. So we picked a spot. I picked a spot just north of town where I thought, well, if we spike him here, he's probably not going to make it into town. We deployed the spikes. We hit all 4 tires, and
Was he lit up at that point?
no, he still had not seen a red or blue light yet.
Let me say, when he says we deployed the spikes, Chief Kaiser deployed the spikes. He was by himself.
Yeah, so
all he knows is he's driving in the dark, and then he gets spiked.
and we talked about this, I think, just yesterday.
Welcome to Atascosa County.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That would not be the ordinary procedure for spiking somebody.
Yeah, but the tactical advantage of that's.
But based on the fact that he had
yeah.
killed 5 people, we weren't going to give him any advantage. So ended up throwing the spikes, hit all 4 tires, and I to this day believe that he probably thought I just had a blowout, and so he drove a little further, a few 100 yards. Of course, after he hits the spikes, the patrol units that were behind him, they passed me, and I jump back in my truck and fall into line. Now I'm kind of toward the back of the line of police cars, and he pulls over, he hesitates, and I think when he realized all the headlights behind him stopped too, then he knew something was up. And at that point, everybody turned on their lights, and then he attempted, and for a little bit, he did a short little pursuit where he tried to evade those officers.
GPS 116 and Atascosa, how copy?
116, that is clear.
Okay, here now we are 162 westbound, 162 westbound. Before 162 westbound. Okay, he's pulling down control. He's pulling to animal control. 10-4, vehicle's pulling to animal control. Makes sense. Together. Let's go behind animal control. Let's go behind animal control. That is drivable, guys. Okay, let's get the police around it. Get the police around it. He is behind animal control this time in the field. He's going back towards 16, heading back towards 16. He's going over the fence line. Everybody head back towards 16. We're setting up sights on 16 as we're feeding. Okay, he is north of 162. North of 162. He's on the east side of his dirt mound. Heading back towards 16, he is heading back towards 16. They're about to pop out on the north side of the 6th. Oh, 4 Jourdanton, 16 airport. Stand by, stand by. Heading toward Jourdanton, 16 southbound. Okay, we are 16 southbound, 16 southbound. We're at 1080, guys, 1080. Be careful. That's the, okay, he's going up the back one. Consider back on the back window, units. And it's got it. Well, he's be advised, he needs one of the rifles. Okay, he's at 1050 in the telephone pole. 1050, he's still going. Westbound, Jourdanton, westbound. Coming to stop at Campbell. Coming to stop at Campbell. Shots fired, shots fired. During shots fired, he is clear with the weapon. He's clear with the weapon. He is west of Campbell, east of Campbell, east of Campbell. Right there, you guys coming around, he is west. All you stand by.
We were hoping he wasn't going to try to go in there and, you know, then you potentially could have a hostage situation. Who knows with a guy like this what you would end up with. He ended up driving around the truck stop. I don't know how that truck kept going with 4 flat tires, but
Just rolling on rims.
yeah, basically he's just 4 completely flat tires.
I want to hit on something just for a second. You're the sheriff. You're the chief. You're how far out when all this takes place, when you initially get the call that the license plate is called out?
Well, I'm on Interstate 37, about 8 miles away, and Chief Kaiser is over there in that area. We were covering 37, so we had to, like I said, drive like hell to get over there.
And that's what I want to touch on. So many times, and you've been there, we've all been there, where we've always second guessed that chain of command when decisions are made. And we've never really had an administrator really been on this podcast. I want you, because you probably drove 100 and whatever miles an hour to get to this scene because you wanted to be there for your guys. One, how many of your people were involved at this point is my first question. And second question to you, the sheriff. In so many words, I want you to describe what thought processes are going through your mind as the sheriff of this county. One, the responsibilities and the amount of pressure, because the reality is you are the chief, but all this is taking place in the county, and everybody's going to look to you to make that decision
On the fly.
on the fly. This is a huge deal. That this is an escapee of TDC. This man has just murdered 5 people. Everybody in law enforcement is going to look at you for all these decisions, and that is a huge undertaking to take on. And 22 years old, it doesn't matter. That's a huge responsibility to take on. And I think that sometimes we in law enforcement we look past that. And I think now is really the opportunity for you as the sheriff to kind of explain what that thought process really looks like.
Well, to answer your first question, there was probably 10 or 12 of my officers out there initially. And then when it was confirmed and we were following him, probably half a dozen more came out. The thought process that night, you know, like you said, yeah, the pressure's there. I never thought about anything like that. All I thought about, this guy cannot get through Atascosa County without being apprehended. And I think everybody was thinking that night, but no, we didn't talk about it.
Right.
Later on, we talked about it after the fact, but our thought process in mind was, no way does this dude get through Atascosa County and then to the remote areas of South Texas where he can kill somebody else.
Yeah.
And so we're going to do whatever it takes to stop him. And the plan was get over there, spike his truck, and hopefully keep him out of the city of Jourdanton. That didn't exactly work. He got into the north part of town. But everything else happened almost textbook. And it's fortunate, sometimes a plan comes together and a whole bunch of other guys do their part, and it makes you look good. And it was no one-man operation that night.
Right.
It was multiple agencies, multiple officers who all knew. Like I said, we didn't talk about it, but we all knew, no way does he get through us. No way. We were even told later that a state agency maybe crossed their mind to tell us to let him go through, and they were going to follow him south. We never got that order, and it's a good thing we didn't, because I would have told them, no way, Jose.
Yeah.
We ain't doing that.
Yeah.
And so.
And that's the ugly part of sausage making, that people don't always understand, consider, or want to consider, is prison escapee killed 5 people. He may enter my county. He's not leaving my county. And
exactly.
He can surrender or prone out or whatever, or he can get out and force us into a gunfight. But the citizens wanted him stopped. There's a lot of victims out there, and you guys either consciously or subconsciously had a plan in place that he may arrive here, but he's not leaving.
That's
either in handcuffs or not.
That's exactly right, Clinton. My biggest fear that night was him getting to, either like Chief alluded to, getting to somebody where he could carjack them at that truck stop, or getting to a house. Because if he got inside of a house with people in it, we were going to have a murder. One of the citizens of our county was going to be a victim, and we knew that couldn't happen. We had to do every single thing in our power to stop him, and we did. And fortunately, it worked out perfect. We stopped him.
And we had people from every spectrum of law enforcement. So, I was out. The sheriff was out. Our Texas Ranger that works in our county was out right there in the middle of it. And then we had patrol deputies, patrol officers, all the way down to, I had a patrol officer. It was her first night off FTO. It was her first night in a police car by herself.
Oh, wow.
And she'd been on duty for about 2 hours, and then this happens. And so she's calling me, what do you want me to do? And so I'm talking to her, and in my head I'm thinking, I've got to give her instructions, knowing her capabilities, and she's a great officer.
But brand new, nothing to base upon.
Exactly. And and then we've got the sheriff and the Rangers out here too. So you've got this wide array of experience and talent.
You got 1 day to 41 years.
Yeah, exactly.
And do y'all have comms?
Oh, yes.
Everybody could communicate during that episode on. That's super important. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and
Y'all dispatch through their county?
Yeah, the sheriff's office dispatches for us, so that part wasn't a problem. And then plus we're talking on the phone to each other during that time as well, making phone calls,
texting.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. Well, one thing to remember is y'all are all cops or been cops, and everybody listen to this has probably been a cop or knows a cop. But you want to be where you're most likely going to get into the action. That's human nature of being a police officer. And it took a lot of self-discipline that night to keep people over here on Interstate 35 in Lytle, or way over here on US 281. Well, he most likely won't come that way. Well, you don't know which way he's coming.
Yeah.
So you had a highway to guard and watch, and everybody had to do their part.
Yeah.
Just like these guys on Highway 16. They're up there by themselves on the north part of the county, and lo and behold, truck comes by and it's hit. But it's just human nature. You know, everybody wants to be, well he's probably going to come down 37. Let's all go out 37.
Yeah.
But no, that night everybody was covering a highway, and that's important to for everybody to realize their job. It's just like a perimeter. You know, you set up a perimeter, and to keep somebody on their spot for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, because you got to maintain that perimeter. And it's the same concept that night.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perimeter's not sexy, but
Nope.
perimeter's is as important as any other piece of that puzzle.
So he's spiked now. He's got 4 flat tires. He's cutting through a field. We're not obviously he didn't know where he was going to go, and we didn't know where he was going to go, but we knew we didn't want him to get around people.
Right.
He was able to make it back to Highway 16 on his 4 flat tires, and granted, at this point, we're not going very fast, but we're still going. One of the officers in the front reported that he was shooting at them, and they ended up recovering or there was a bullet in a windshield of one of the pursuing officers. Obviously, a car with 4 flat tires is very hard to control. So he did make it into the city limits, about one street into the city limits, and tried to make a turn and couldn't control a vehicle, hit a utility pole, some more erratic driving for a block or so. And
Drainage ditch first.
Yeah.
Did the intel you guys were provided with the vehicle description and the plate, did you guys have any intel of handgun, long gun, shotgun, what he may have with him?
I believe they reported to us that there was some firearms stolen from the scene of the murder, that the family that was like a weekend cabin for them.
Oh, okay.
And they had some firearms there that were no longer there when they found the body. So they assumed that he took those guns, which he ended up.
Yeah, he did. He had 2 I know of, and we were told of an AR style rifle, and that's the only description we had of the rifle. Turned out to be an AR-22, but it was an AR style rifle.
Okay.
And he was armed with a pistol that was also stolen from the victims.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think he had the grandfather's wallet in his pocket.
In his boot.
Or in his boot, yeah. I knew he had it on his person when he was caught.
And just so we're clear, it was the grandfather and 4 grandsons.
That is correct.
Yeah, that he murdered earlier that day. So he made it. And in my head, before we found this vehicle, I thought surely somewhere between Centerville and San Antonio, somebody, he must have switched vehicles by now, because somebody would have seen this truck if it's still driving.
Yeah.
But he was still in it. And he ended up coming into town. He shot at officers that were pursuing him. He ended up wrecking out when the vehicle wouldn't go anymore, and jumped out of his vehicle with the rifle and engaged officers at that point. And an officer was able to get a shot that hit him, and he didn't make it very much farther after that. He went down. The rest of it becomes a scene for the Rangers to work, but EMS was called, but it was over right there.
Do you know about how far a shot the officer took? Just wild.
30
ballpark?
to 40 yards, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Handgun or rifle?
Rifle. He wrecked out after he came out of the bar ditch and hit a pole on the right side of the road. He come up out of the bar ditch again. It's a drainage ditch, so it's pretty deep. Crossed the road, bounced across the road, and goes into a fence and a pole on the other side of the road. So his truck is sort of up against this chain link fence, and there was so much switching, because every time he would turn, you might be right behind him, which at one time I was pretty close, but then all the switching was going around, and he's driving around a truck stop. Well, I turned around and went to the truck stop because I thought he might come back right in the middle of the truck stop. So the vehicles that ended up right behind him or close, were mostly my units, and 3 of my guys engaged, 3 of my officers, and 1 other officer who works for the county were the ones that fired the shots. And you can he was hit pretty quick. He went down, got back up, and didn't make it much farther than that. Dropped his rifle when he went down. I'm going to say it's probably about a 30-yard shot.
Wow. Well, that's got to feel like a gorilla off y'all's back when you see it's him for sure. He's down. Minimal damage. Well, we have 5 victims, but he didn't get mobile in a small confined area or in the community, and it turned into an active shooter scene. And that's got to feel like, whew, that's
where he ended up dying. He was in a yard next to a chicken coop or dog pen. Those people were gone, and fortunately they were gone. But right next door, exactly next door, the direction he was running is a mobile home, and the people were home. There's no doubt in my mind he'd have got in one of those houses, and if there was people in there, he would have took hostage, and probably somebody would have got killed in that house. And so when we stopped him, we probably prevented
More acts of violence.
no doubt.
Yeah.
When somebody kills, they escape from prison, which they're in there for a violent crime already, and then they kill 5 innocent family members. They're not rational.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No. Did he kill the prison guard? I can't remember.
No, the prison guard lived.
Okay. Well, it was a horrible situation. I mean, to kill a grandfather and 4 of his grandkids on a fishing trip like that.
It's unimaginable how tragic that was for the family of those people. I can't even begin to imagine that.
Yeah.
well, but for y'all, there could have been more victims, and you two and the folks that work for you gave them some closure to end it. And unfortunately, the coward got to die a death, and we're not paying for him to live out a life with 3 hots and a cot.
Nope, not at all.
Well, recently you guys were recognized by the senator or the Senate and Lieutenant Dan Patrick there at the Capitol, which I think is pretty neat that our legislative body recognized you guys for y'all's heroic actions that day. And
it was real special, and to get that recognition and get a Senate resolution and have all the senators come up and shake your hand, and then the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick added that he was friends of the family of the victims.
Oh wow, no kidding.
They lived in the same area, and so he
Conroe, yeah, I guess
Conroe.
That's a small world.
And he knew him real well. Had received a phone call earlier in the day about them being murdered, so it was special to him to have us there, and being that our group was the one that stopped him.
Wow,
That is a small world.
Yeah, it is.
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is a small world, and he was the lieutenant governor was very appreciative.
And I'm proud that you guys got recognized for that, and you and the folks that work with you, because so often the media only wants to talk about the mistakes that are made when there's a million heroic good things that are done, whether it's stopping a murderer or getting out and playing with a couple of kids on the side of the road and tossing a football with them to engage the community. That goes on every day in our community, not gunfights and stopping a murder like you did, but I'm glad you guys were recognized for it, because the good has to be highlighted too, because that far outweighs the mistakes that are made from time to time. And I'm thankful. And as you guys said, y'all have had no blowback. The community was supportive, and it's easy to get behind when a murderer who kills children gets killed. That's an easy one to get behind, but I'm thankful that trolls and other cowards haven't taken up.
No, that wasn't a problem, and I got so many emails and text messages from people and phone messages from people I didn't know.
He wouldn't have got them if you hadn't shown him how to text.
That's right.
I didn't think about it that way.
That's right. Yeah.
And I know the victims we live in Centerville. We've been scared to death for 18 days. Appreciate what you did.
That's awesome.
Lots of those calls.
If you'll do a home invasion and kill everybody inside, including children, that's a very real threat. I can see everybody in that community truly just being stricken to leave home.
Talking to the sheriff over there in Leon County, which I visited with him last July at the sheriff's conference, and it was a total nightmare of stress that he was under for that 18-day period where they had an active manhunt going on for this guy.
And Texas is a big state, but 18 days on the lam
Yep.
is a long time to be concealed, hidden.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I got a text message from that night from a prison guard who I coached in Little League, and he said, "Sheriff, is he dead?" I said, "Yeah, he is." He said, "Thank God." And he said, "I've worked 18 days straight, 18-hour days, no time off." He said, "I'm gonna get a day off now."
Golly.
He'd been running dogs for 18 days.
That's wild.
So how many years in law enforcement, Sheriff?
Total in law enforcement with the little Jourdanton PD stint of 48-ish.
48.
Wow.
You almost got this thing figured out.
Yeah, I probably need a little bit more time, and I'll have it down.
How many more are you going to do, sir?
Oh, I don't know. Don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The world could use some more leaders like you two. I knew when the chief sent me a text, I was like, yeah, he's not going to go hide and lead from the radio, or he's going to be out in front of this, and he's a shit magnet. I text him. I was like, Chief's about to be in a gunfight, I guarantee you, because he'll be right there alongside his troops. And folks like you two, servant leaders who understand their roles and low egos, and you guys we could use a whole lot more.
Yep.
Well, everybody's got a different leadership style, and I don't want to critique anybody's, but I think it's important that a chief that I know in Port Aransas, Scott Burrows, he told me one time, we've heard people that lead from the front or people that lead from the rear. He said, I think the best style is to lead from the side. He said, walk next to your guys. And when there's accolades to be had, you let them step forward and take them.
Yep.
And when people are slinging arrows at them, you step forward and take those for them. And I think as we've seen this evolution of law enforcement, or especially over the last 10 years or so, we're really going to have to invest in our officers who are going to be the next generation of leaders in law enforcement.
Yep.
And make them understand the importance that it's not just getting the big office, and it's not just getting brass on your collar. That there's some important things that need to be instilled in them, and there are those people are out there. Those officers and deputies that are going to carry on when we're gone, they're out there. We just need to make sure we're developing them.
Well, and it shocks me every day in the role that Tyler and I are in. Well, I'll get a phone call from somebody in a leadership role, whether it's in a company or whether it's in a police agency, law enforcement agency. Well, my department's a wreck, and the guys don't know what the hell they're doing, and they're this and they're that. And I'm thinking, well, that's a reflection on you. That's not a reflection on them. You need to maybe stop and record what you're saying, and so you can re-listen to it, because if everything's helter-skelter, it's probably not their fault. You might look in the mirror and realize you're the one that maybe caused it, or allowing it, or taught it, or empowered it.
Tolerated it.
That's right.
And it wasn't just Chief Kaiser and myself out there. Give credit to the police chief from Pleasanton, Ronald Sanchez. He was right there. He got there 30 seconds after the shooting stopped. So he was, nobody was doing this from the house. We were all right there in the middle of it. And I was surprised at the sheriff's conference last July. They gave me and the sheriff from Leon County a Texas Lawman Award that they give out every year. And of course, I was proud to get it, but like I told them, I'm getting this for me and 25 other officers that were out there. This was not me doing this. This was us doing it. And that's real important and I told all my guys that I handed out 14 commendations after that incident that night. And because I know I couldn't have done all that by myself. Mm-hmm. And it took a bunch of dedicated law enforcement officers to get it done, and we got it done.
Outstanding.
That's awesome. Y'all got anything else?
Well, that's the story. That's how it happened, and we're glad that family didn't have to go through any more trauma than beyond what is unimaginable, losing 5 family members in the same day. So the correct outcome occurred, and then we're glad that nobody in our jurisdictions had to become a victim because of one violent person's rage.
Yep, I agree.
Chief Kaiser's, that's the story. First thing that pops in my head is Paul Harvey.
Yeah.
Now you know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Tyler won't get that.
Yeah.
You know who Paul Harvey is?
No, I don't.
I-
I can't pronounce this county.
These 3 know who Paul Harvey
Yeah,
is.
absolutely.
Now
And I
you
wish I
know.
was as young as you are.
The rest of the story. Well, when you said 1975 you began, I was thinking, Tyler, don't tell him where you were at in 1975.
I was a thought. I was a thought. Well, Sheriff, we end this podcast. Chief Kaiser knows how we end it, sadly, because he was this is his second time being on. We're not.
It's the first time people will actually see me on, though.
Yeah, this is your first debut, but this is your second time being on. He was the victim of the storm. Thank you for coming back, by the way. We'll have to do a second round here in the next couple of months.
We need to.
Yeah, but we actually end the podcast with 3 questions.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire. So, I'm not sure who will go first, but what is your favorite movie or line from your favorite cop movie? Favorite patrol car and favorite drink of choice?
I'll go first. Favorite movie, cop line?
Cop. What
Cop
is your
movie.
favorite cop movie? See, I always screw it up. Clint always.
Police movie or line from a police movie?
There you go.
So when I was a teenager, Beverly Hills Cop came out.
Yep.
And
Eddie Murphy?
he puts the bananas in the detective's car tailpipe.
Yep.
Say, we're not going to fall for the old banana in the tailpipe trick. I don't know why that line
great, yeah.
sticks out in my head.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Favorite police vehicle? I know you guys talk about cars and trucks a lot. Me and Clinton were in New York City a few years back at a conference, and we actually got to go on a first responder boat that the city of New York owns. That was probably the coolest police vehicle I've ever put my feet in.
It was amazing.
Yeah. So it's on the water, but it was pretty cool.
Capability on it.
Oh, yeah.
Nuclear detection
Oh.
devices. I mean, it was cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. And favorite drink? Man, it's hard for me to pass up a good old fashioned if I'm going out to eat.
That's a good one too.
My man.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Favorite police movie? I'm not going to be very good at that. I'd have to sit here and think about it, unfortunately. But, and I don't watch a lot of movies. I don't have time. Never had time. And
Favorite police car?
favorite police car, Crown Victoria.
Oh yes, Sheriff. Right here, fist bump.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
We're good friends. There
Yeah.
you go. That's,
And
that's the number one answer, by the way. Just throwing it
oh
out
yeah,
there.
It's not the number.
yeah. Ford's worst idea when they quit,
Oh, I'm
quit
telling
making
you. I
those
don't know what the
cars.
hell they're thinking.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Favorite drink? Not a big drinker, but like a bourbon and Coke.
There you go.
Any particular bourbon you like, Sheriff?
The cheaper kind. if I'm buying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, Clint, you got anything?
No, other than Caprice, Chevy Caprice, if you'd like to be a sponsor.
Well, this
you can
about
always
wraps it up,
reach out.
guys. If you guys
Hashtag-
want to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, you guys stay safe out there. This is an unbelievable story, and thank y'all for coming on.
Oh, my
Awesome
pleasure.
episode.
Thanks for
Awesome
having us.
episode.
Thanks
yeah.
for having us.
Just an unbelievable story, and I still can't believe that he went 4 hours and traveled 4 hours and came to Yawls County without getting stopped.
In 18 days missing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But thank y'all for coming on and sharing it. It's a story that needs to be told, and just like Clint said, more stories of heroism need to be told like this. So
Sure.
yeah. Thank y'all for coming on. You guys stay safe. God bless you, and as always, may God bless Texas. We're out.